All this extreme festival of motorsport action is proudly brought to you by Car Care Clinic and Dunlop Tires. We head to the Free State and to the Phakisa Freeway for the Phakisa 200 with ideal weather conditions to go racing with today. A small breeze has picked up, which is going to help out things a little bit and just to cool the conditions down for the engines, but it will also be a big factor down the back straightaway as these cars get really up close and personal. It's the Phakisa 200, proudly brought to you by Car Care Clinic, and it's a great big field of over 30 cars about to go to battle. Made up of the Car Care Clinic 111 Sports and Saloons, Sports and GTs, and the incredible Super Hatch category, and a couple of Volkswagen Challenge cars thrown into the mix as well. One of the big contenders in Super Hatch will be Brett Garland. Let's have a chat with him.
Well, I suppose being an endurance race, you've got to obviously look you in for the long haul. So you've got to make sure you look after the tyres, conserve fuel where you can, and keep a good pace. But you've got to look after the car at the end of the day.
Car Care Clinic is a great way to look after your car, so let's make sure that all those cars are going well. As the Pretoria North Toyota pulls off the circuit, it's now up to Adrian Dalton to dictate the pace. Alongside him is Mark de Toy. Behind them, Wouter Roos in the Super Cup Polo. Then you've got Louis Scholz alongside him in his Golf. Those two Car Care Clinic cars are going to be definitely right at the front end as the flag drops. And look out for a big charge coming from Andre de Lange. There's going to be some serious maneuvers through this field now as they get ready to go. You can hear that pace. Everything is on a knife edge, and we're about to get those lights out. As soon as they go out, we go racing down towards turn one. We heard from Brett Garland, it's very important to try and nurse the tyres around here, but this is a very abrasive circuit, and tyre wear is going to be a big factor in this one. Great start from Dalton. He's got de Toy right on his tail. Louis Scholz up in the third place. Looks like Mark de Toy side by side there. Wayne Labotsky around the outside of Brett Garland coming out of turn one. Good start there from him as we go on board with Labotsky. The Shield Golf man looking to try and get through there and hopefully find a way past on what would possibly be the lead car in Super Hatch at this stage. And the Trans-Africa Racing Honda is under threat there from Labotsky as they go down towards turn two. We go on board here with the Autobahn car, Brett Garland. He'll be sharing the car later on with Heinz Buzet. Good to have him back in a race car as well. And he's a very quick competitor, particularly around this circuit. Look at that. Oh, Louis Scholz already going on the attack, looking for a way to squeeze through, and he gets Wouter Roos on his high side, and around the outside comes Mark de Toy. What a start there from de Toy. He goes side by side out of the toe of the boot and heading up towards the Coke bottle. Good start there from Philip Meyer as well as he squeezed through up into about 7th or 8th place there. Van der Pfeiffer comes through there. There is the Pro Auto Rubber Opel Corsa of Andre Danhauser as well in the mix. A little bit off the pace of those two Hondas right now, but he was speaking to me during the race saying there's a very good possibility that the Opel will come into its own later on in the race day. Let's see what happens. Remember, this is expected to be about a 50-lap race, and these guys are going in it like it's a sprint race. Absolutely amazing start here from the first four. Make it the first five as DeLange brings along for the ride a couple of the other cars thrown into the mix. That's Arungi's diving on the inside, looking for a way through, and he gets up on the inside of that ST Focus as they go down through the fastest right-hander in the Free State. Absolutely everything she's got through there, and the Valve Fluid Systems 350Z right up onto the back end there of Wouter Roos. Potgieter goes through. Looks like it's Labotsky ahead of Jonathan de Toy now. That Trans-Africa Racing Civic into the clutches of Brett Garland coming through there as well. Look at the start that's coming from that second pack of cars. Remember, the front pack is basically the Sports and GT category in 111 Sports and Saloons. And then just behind them is the lead pack of Super Hatch. So there's a real great little battle that's starting to rage here at the front end. 111 Sports and Saloons, remember, made up into two different categories. You've got the 111s and you've got the Sports and GT category. The Sports and GT cars really putting in some valiant effort here to get through, especially from that man, Charles Arungi's, diving through on Wouter Roos. Wouter Roos demoted down one position, but you can see Wouter Roos maybe just taking it easy there in that Super Cup Polo, looking for a chance now to maybe just settle things down, get into a bit of rhythm, and wait for that pit stop strategy that they are working on there with Graham Nathan. Good move here from Mark de Toy to try and close things down there on the back end of Dalton. Dalton controlling things at the front end though. That extra shoes and clothing Golf of his is a very, very top competitor. 8-valve Performance performing all of the works on that machine to get it up to the front end and get it up to the pace that they've got. And it is really good pace so far. As they come out of the toe of the boot, you can see some maneuvering happening there to try and close that gap down. But Louis Scholz seems to be under a bit of pressure now. There is a big move from Charles Arungi to dive through, possibly going to get through by the Coke bottle. And we want for the rest of the field to come through. Look at that. Labotsky still remains ahead of Jonathan de Toy. De Toy does the same thing ahead of Garland. And Garland pushing hard there to try and stay ahead of the rest of the pack of 111 Sports and Saloons. And there's the third placed Super Hatch car, right behind that Mel Spur in the fourth place Super Hatch car. A good start from her, but not in her normal car. Stepping up into Louis Scholz's Honda this time out due to a little bit of an issue on her Polo. But they'll get that sorted out, I'm sure, for the next round of this championship. onto the back straight away. Looks like Philip Mayer starting to put a little bit of maneuver there, closing things down on the back end of that ST Focus. The roof shore car of Andre de Lange could be in a bit of trouble there as the People Group Porsche starts to make its way to the front. Philip Mayer's had a fantastic start to this one. Didn't quite expect to see that kind of pace from him, but he certainly has got that car dialed in. Phakisa all on his own, probably just waiting for something to happen at the front end before he starts to make any maneuvers. It doesn't look like anybody going to be doing anything just yet. They're just probably settling down into a bit of a rhythm now to try and get through the first half of this race. Further back in the pack, though, there are certainly some maneuvers happening. Ethan Coetzee and Mitch Coetzee sharing the JRT Polo, under attack there from the Welcome-based driver. That, of course, an incredible drive out of Leonard Archer for the ACD Welcome machine. He's, of course, in a Hyundai. Nice to see a little Hyundai on track, something completely different to what we normally see. And there's a couple of cars in here, including this man, Wouter Roos. Look at how comfortable he looks in the car. Absolutely brilliant stuff, keeping it smooth and steady at this point, not putting too much pressure onto Louis. Maybe the two of them have got a bit of strategy to work together to try and make it a 1-2 here for the Car Care Clinic guys. But they're currently sitting down in 4 and 5, so maybe a bit of maneuvering and maybe a bit of change up in the strategy. I'm sure they'll be chatting about that. Miles Spur under a bit of threat there from Stian Kriel as he comes up there with Mo Dangle. They're sharing one car. That is the Creative Inc. Machine coming up onto the back end of Miles Spur. Once again, there we see Leonard Archer. He's made a bit of a maneuver and got through on the Coetzee boys. So slowly but surely making his way to the front end of the Super Hatch battle. Nice move here from, as I said, Philip Mayer. What a start from that Porsche. Didn't quite expect to see that kind of pace from him. But he certainly has got something special here at Welcome. Let's see if we can keep it all together until the end of the race. Dalton's starting to pull a bit of a margin now. He's decided to turn the wick up and maybe get ahead of that Z4. I think Detroit might just be taking a bit of a breather. He's on his own this time. No Ryan Cranchai or his brother to share that car. Good move there from Robbie De Silva. De Silva diving through on Mal Spur in the T-Rex machine as he gets up there. And a nice bit of chopping and changing in that mid-pack of Super Hatch category cars. And they're all starting to sort things out. Further back also just watching for some maneuvers coming through the field there. Vessel Smith and Heath Bent starting to make their way to the front. Wouter Roos seems to have turned up the wick ever so slightly as well. He's pulled away from Louis Scholz. I wonder if Scholz has got a bit of a problem. Looks like we might have lost Scholz. Yes, in fact we have. Louis Scholz has gone missing somewhere out on track. So Adrian Dalton ahead of Detroit, ahead of Arungi's, and then Wouter Roos in fourth place by himself now. The Golf from Car Care Clinic has gone missing. I wonder if it's in pit lane or possibly stuck somewhere out on track. We'll keep an eye out for it. Down the back straight away come the rest of this pack. There goes Mo Dangle just ahead of the Pro Auto Rubber machine. That is Andre Danhauser flying high. And of course he's looking for a chance to be at the top end of Class A in the Super Hatch class. But right now it's Jonathan Detroit who leads that one out. And he's got this gap over Brett Garland. Garland has now got Fun of Faithful ahead of him, so he's got to try and find a way through there. Oh, Adrian Dalton! Adrian Dalton's got a problem. Dalton pulls to the sideline. That is a huge, huge loss to the front end. He was leading comfortably. I wonder what's gone wrong there on that Golf. 8-valve performance guys will be thinking, what has gone wrong? He's already looking down at the dials, trying to work out what is the problem. He's actually getting out the car. That's a huge issue there for Adrian Dalton. I wonder if he can get it back to pit lane and hopefully get it sorted out. Dalton with massive problems there, and that's definitely not the way you want to be starting things out. Further back, you can see, there we go, coming through there. Almira Van Eck starting to put a bit of pressure on as well. He's all over the back end there of Ethan, or Mitch Coetzee. I think it's actually Ethan who started the race, and Mitch is going to take over from him. So a little bit of chopping and changing there as well. Man, this is great stuff. This is what the Phakisa 200 is all about. It's a bit of a chess game that happens for almost 50-odd laps. Left-hand side, there's Louis Scholz. Louis Scholz is on the left-hand side of that shot. That's such a pity to lose Louis Scholz. He must have had an issue as well. So he's going to try and get that car back to pit lane. As Jonathan Detroit continues to lead out Super Hatch, will join us off the break for more action from the Car Care Clinic and Dunlop Phakisa 200. Welcome back to action from the Car Care Clinic and Dunlop Phakisa 200. And Car Care Clinic car of Louis Scholz is on the sideline. They still haven't got it back to pit lane. And I'm sure that the boys at Nathan's Motorsport are itching to get to that car to try and find out what the issue is on that Golf. At the front end, oh, hello. Adrian Dalton for the second time off on the right-hand side, watching the marshal run across the circuit there, but they're going to get that car back on track. Yes, Dalton gets back on track, but he's now about 2 laps down on the leaders who've just gone through turn 1 there. Mark Detroit ahead of Arungi's. So those 2 black cars just dominating things at the front end and controlling things pretty rapidly as we see a little bit of a maneuver here coming from the man from V-Town. He's looking for a way through to try and get ahead of Mark Detroit, but Detroit is keeping him very honest. You can see just in the background, Wouter Roos has come through this. We've got 3 black cars leading things out at the front end. I can see Dalton's car just in the background. He's managed to get it back on track, but I don't think it's firing like it was earlier on. It could be a potential problem there, and maybe even a terminal problem for Adrian Dalton. Another problem that they need to be concerned about, it's not really a problem, but there's something they've got to be very, very concerned about, is their pace. They're not allowed to carry any lap timers on the car, but they're not allowed to break out of the 1 minute 52 allocated as the breakout time for those classes. Speaking of classes, first of the classes coming into pit lane is Mel Spur for her scheduled stop. Let's find out from her how things have gone out there in the Car Care Clinic Honda Civic.
There seems to be, it's not fuel surge because it happened from the word go, but every right-hander, I can't go more than 60% throttle and the car just bogs down. And since the pit stop, for whatever reason, the right-handers, it just bogs down, regardless of the amount of petrol I apply. So we have to cross the line to finish, so we're playing a smart ones game, and we're waiting till the last lap if we can't find the issue, just so that I can cross the line.
It's not a bad strategy to have, and maybe just get Mel out there to try and get those points in the bag, because remember, they do score double points here for both of the categories. So it'll be interesting to see how that all turns out by the end of this one. And there we go, working hard there. Nathan's Motorsport and the Car Care Clinic boys and girls getting that car back up and running and Mel back onto the circuit. Remember, when you do come in for a pit stop though, the driver has to get out the car when they refuel, if they're going to do a refuel. They didn't do a refuel there, and then they've also got to do the windscreen wash as per the rules here for the Phakisa 200. Further back, nice to see Charles Anderson and Stilio Nusias sharing that car. Anderson at the wheel at the moment and looking for a chance to be in the top end of the Class C and Class B battles for both the Super Hatch and the Volkswagen Challenge category. Have we got a change up in the lead by the looks of things? Did Mark Dutoy go through without a scene? No, Dutoy's still in the front. I think we just missed him on the turnaround there. But you can see Charles Arungi seems to have dropped back ever so slightly. So I wonder if Arungi's has got a problem. No, in fact, I'm spot on. Arungi's has actually taken the lead. Just saw that in the background. Arungi's is hit the front and Dutoy into second place now, into the clutches of Voterus. Voterus will definitely be looking at the pace and maintaining some decent pace around here, but not pushing himself too far to possibly break out. That's exactly what everybody's doing. Remember, there's breakout times for each of the classes, and they've got to be so careful that they don't do anything to harm their chances of being at the top end and on the podium by the end of this race. Dutoy maybe just taking a bit of a breather here, taking a little bit of time out, giving a chance to the man out front to set the pace. Maybe that pace might be too hot. There's all strategies and chess game maneuvers that have to happen in this category, and particularly when we come to Phakisa for the 200. Dalton is back up and trucking in the background. You can see that red Golf of his, the extra shoes and clothing Golf, back up and running. But he's about 3 laps down now after those incidents and having to pull off the circuit twice in the first part of this one. There he goes, just in the middle of that mid-pack of cars coming through back markers now. There's traffic all the time from here on out for the leaders. You'll see the lights go on those front cars probably over the next couple of laps just to warn the slower drivers that they're on their way. They come across the line. Arungi's leads ahead there of Mark Dutoy, then Voterus just in the background. And look out for Dalton. Might just get him in the background of the shot as he comes through there on Anderson. He does. So Dalton trying to make up ground. He's got to go and get past these cars 2 or 3 times. Maybe going to look to change his pit stop strategy to try and help him out to make some maneuvers through there. Further back in the field, of course, we're seeing also some great battles there as Danhauser comes onto the back end of Dango at the front end. Here is Scholz eventually being brought back into the pit box. So I wonder what the issue there is on that Golf. Louis not going to be too concerned about it because he's got a great team to sort this car out if they can. And they'll probably dive onto that car as quickly as possible to get it all sorted out. But I think he's probably even radioed back to say to them whether or not it's worth getting the car back on track or not. You can see Graham Nathan walking across to have a look and see, and maybe they can get that car sorted out. Van Pfeiffer doing a great job there out in the Subaru, followed by Gossman and Mobaglia sharing that 325 IS. Little shadow line starting to hound the back end of the Subaru. And Garland coming along for the ride. Malsberg giving a little way there. That's not quite what she wants to be doing, considering she's fighting in the same category as Jonathan Dutoy. But we already heard from Mel that there's a bit of an issue on the car, and she's going to just nurse it home to try and get those points in the bag. Vital to get the points in there and to finish. Remember, you have to cross the line and take the checkered flag to be classified in this one. Let's go back down into pit lane.
Yeah, trouble in paradise. All the practice, all the time we put in, all the prep, and we snapped the side shaft going through 3. So we're going to quickly try and put it back together. We hope it's not fatal. But let's see what happens. So I'll see you now. Either I see you in the pits or I see you out there. Thanks.
There's such great attitude there from Louis Scholz. Depending on how it all goes, it can be going absolutely terribly, and he's still got a smile on his face because he loves his racing so much. And of course, Car Care Clinic, their big slogan is "We love cars," so he certainly loves being out in a race like this. Look at the race that's happening between Dango and Danhauser. Dango all over the back end there of Andre Danhauser and having to work as hard. Robbie De Silva seems to have made up a little bit of ground there too. Started to close things down ever so slightly with Vessel Smith and Heath Bent in there too. But Danhauser's got a big problem because there is some maneuvering happening there coming out of the Creative Ink car of Mo Dangle. As he looks to go on the inside, he dives right underneath the exhaust pipe of that little Corsa. It's a great fight, actually, these two going at it as hard as what they can. And you can see the Polo might just have a little bit of an edge there in terms of top end. Let's see what happens onto the back straight. They come through Uncini 1 and Uncini 2. No, hello. The Opal just opens up. It's got a slight different top end compared to the Polo. But it is a fantastic battle, nonetheless, between the two of them. This is Dan Houser's teammate a little bit further back there, Shane Forget, leading things out in Class C at this point. So the Class C battle. No, in fact, not. Yorick Smith is actually leading out. So Yorick Smith just ahead of him there. That's the Mazda MX-5 just up the road. And there's Dalton on the left-hand side again. That could be the end of Dalton's day. Adrian Dalton will be really upset with that because he had a great car underneath him to start this race out. It's just gone all wrong. Let's see whether or not they can get that sorted out, though. Marshall's coming across to double-check that he's okay. Back in pit lane, Andre de Lange in for a pit stop. And it looks like it's a tyre change required there as well, because tyre preservation is crucial. There you see an opportunity of how bad it's gone out there for de Lange's front left. Back into the front. Here we go. That's Scholz back on track. Louis Scholz has been able to get back onto the circuit, but he's now right into the mix of the guys he should be playing with. Now, I wonder if that's going to be a little bit of a maneuver that he's thought about. And maybe he can help bridge the gap there for Votarus. We're on board with Garland as they go to the toe of the boot. De Toy on the inside of Scholz. Late on the brakes, he gets through Louis Scholz to make it relatively easy there for Mark De Toy. He doesn't want to get involved in the battle, but he would try and help out Votarus if he could. But it doesn't look like he's got the same kind of pace he had earlier on. Garland right behind him, then comes Votarus. Votes will be thinking about when he needs to come in to change to Graham Nathan. See what that strategy is going to be. Charles Orangis continues to lead things out here at the Phakisa 200. And it's Car Care Clinic Sports and GT category out front. They're doing an amazing job. Both Charles Orangis and Mark De Toy, with Votarus currently in third place, but waiting. I think he's playing the waiting game and looking for an opportunity later on in the race to maybe show his cards. We know how good that little Super Cup Polo is, and not only in sprint races, but particularly in endurance races as well. And at the Phakisa Freeway, Vote has been very good in the past. Coming through the fast right-hander, Brett Garland back on board with him. Let's have a look and see what it looks like here through the fastest right-hander in the Free State. Nice move there as they come across the line there. We've got Jonathan De Toy leading Class A and Forget in Class C now. Join us off the break for more action from the Phakisa 200. Welcome back to the Car Care Clinic and Dunlop Phakisa 200. You can see some work being frantically done there on Louis Scholz's car. Andre Danhauser gets out and does the obligatory windscreen wash as they change the one tyre, refuel the car, and as soon as the car's refueled, he's getting a little bit of a jump in his step there just to get the legs all working again. He's been sitting in that car for probably about half an hour now, and still some work to be done here on Van der Vyver's car as well. How many wheel nuts do you want to change on an endurance race? How smart does the refuel guy look down at Car Care Clinic? But Graham Nathan's about to get back into that car now and take over from Votarus. It should be a change up in the pace and maybe in the strategy of that team. Speaking of the strategy of the team, Louis Scholz has found pace again, and he's put himself in between Mark De Toy and Charles Orangis. So is that part of the strategy that Car Care Clinic team are using here? Maybe getting Louis Scholz in the mixture, putting a bit of pressure onto the lead drivers because he's got the same kind of pace as those lead cars have got, and maybe waiting for an opportunity here to maybe spoil the day. He's got ahead now. Orangis got a problem. Orangis slowing up. So that has worked out. It has certainly worked out. The pressure was put onto Orangis. I don't know if it was the pressure that's caused the problem, but Orangis has slowed dramatically. And he's lost the lead of the race now. De Toy leads out, even though we got Louis Scholz ahead of him. They're coming up on the back end of the Universal Motorsport car of Vermeulen as Nathan makes his way out to the track for the first time. Graham Nathan for Car Care Clinic's second team in the Super Cup Polo. Let's catch up now with Vota and find out how it's gone so far.
It was absolutely awesome. Thank you. The car's running very well. But we came in a bit earlier because we're losing time behind the other three and the temperature kept on creeping up. So I think it's better to give Graham clean air because the other guys would still have to stop.
They certainly have to stop, and it's going to be a long time before we see those stops, or are they going to be in for a quick one? We'll wait and see now as they come through. This is Garland coming in from third place in Class A, fighting hard there with Danhauser and with De Toy. This is Scholz now leading on the road but not leading in the race. He's basically the first car out there. De Toy will be just behind him, but Mark De Toy knows he's not fighting with Louis, and Louis is going to go through about 3 more times to try and catch De Toy to take the lead back after losing ground while he was in the pit stop and on the side of the track. Speaking of pit stops, here comes Garland, as we said, coming in for his scheduled stop. He's going to hand over to Heinz Berzer. Now remember, Heinz Berzer, he's having his annual race drive. The last time he was behind the wheel of a car was here at Phakisa Freeway last year. So it's been a while since he's been behind the wheel of a race car, but he's going to hand over and take over the duties from his good friend, Brett Garland. he doesn't need the comfort of that cushion. So he's going to just climb into the car and get ready to go. Brett Garland is going to do the refuel. Not a bad option to get that driver to do the refuel with the fireproofs on. But let's catch up now with Heinz and see how it's going to go.
I'm just pitting now. We're going to go out and see what it's like. Tyre wear is critical, but otherwise it's going good. All good, all good.
How was Brett's stint?
That was good. To plan, yeah. We try to go slow, conserve the tyres and see if we can make up time in the pit stop.
So not a bad strategy to have here is Dalton in pit lane. Let's find out what's wrong.
No, not good. We've only got third and fifth gear, and the car's been cutting out intermittently with a failure in the electrics, so it's not great. But we'll persevere and we'll try and get to the end.
That's what endurance racing's all about. We're on board here with Gavin Ross. He's taken over now in the Shield Golf from Leboczki. He's a very seasoned campaigner when it comes to this one. You can see him fighting hard here as they go through. That looks like Inchini 1 and 2. And he's got a problem. Putting his hand up, and Ross is going to have to bring that car into pit lane. Looks like there may be a gearbox issue there. Just saw him battling with the gears just before we went into the shot of him putting his hand up. Graham Nathan now in the Car Care Clinic Super Cup Polo. And he's going to try and tick off the laps and get that gap down. There is one of the big concerns I thought we'd have in terms of tyre wear. There's a prime example of how bad it can go. Oranji's coming in now with both right tyres, completely destroyed. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's not the surface that's the problem. It's actually just running slightly off the surface and catching some of those sharp edges on the side of the track. And I think that's exactly what's happened with Charles. He's going to have to retire that car. As Wayne Leboczki working on the Shield Golf. Let's find out what's going on.
Water pump belt, alternator belt come loose, and it was actually the bracket that had broken. So unfortunately we can't continue. It was a pity because we were, I think we were doing quite well on index. It seemed like we were pretty on the boil there, but ended up boiling over. It's like one of those things. It's racing for you.
Not too bad with 2 laps to go. I can tell you right now, Leboczki, you weren't only doing well on index, you were leading your class at that point. It's a big pity to lose him. Nathan, though, I don't think 2 laps is going to be enough to catch Mark du Toit. Du Toit has timed this to perfection. He's done an incredible job. He came in at the right time to get the pit stop done, and you can see it's basically just plain sailing there. Although, when he came in, there were a couple of guys that were concerned about the amount of rubber he had left, and is he going to have enough to get him to the line? Using very old rubber down at Trans-Africa Racing to get through this one, and conserving their rubber, of course, for later on in the season in the rest of the Car Care Clinic, 111 Sports and Saloons and Sports and GT category races. 1 to go for Du Toit. Final lap now for the Car Care Clinic and Dunlop Tyres, Phakisa 200. And I think he's got enough in hand here to possibly just keep it all together and take another victory in this incredible race around the Phakisa Freeway. Got a little bit of traffic to do. And coming up in second place, remember, we also got the Porsche of Philip Meyer. Absolutely amazing job there from him. He has been literally unmatched and unmarked by anybody out there, and just tick them off one by one, watch the cars in front of him have to retire or unfortunately go back into pit lane and end their races prematurely. But nothing wrong with that. Garland has moved up in a second place, and of course Berzay at the wheel of that car. So Berzay and Garland looking for a second place in the Car Care Clinic Super Hatch category Class A. They'll be behind Jonathan du Toit. So the Du Toit boys looking to wrap things up at the front end of both of the big classes here today. He comes down into the first turn for the last time. You're watching just in the background there for that black Z4. But a good effort once again there from Berza, and of course Garland sharing the Autobahn Honda. Miles Spur, as we said and as she said in her pit stop, just nursing the car home. Robbie De Silva's had a great run as well. He's going to finish up at the front end of 111 Sports and Saloons, and he's also going to be looking for an opportunity to be there at the front end of the index performance as well with Dion Holiday as his teammate. But that's the man they've all had to catch, and no one could do it today. Once he got to the front, he literally controlled things. Gave Charles Oranges a little bit of time at the front, but I think that was part of his strategy. And he thought to himself, hang on a second, you know, if I've got to be out here on my own, let's just take it as easily as I can and not make any wrong maneuvers. The checkered flag is on standby for Mark du Toit. As we see Graham Nathan pulling into pit lane, and he's going to cross the line in pit lane. With only about 2 corners to go for Mark du Toit, he comes through. He's going to take the Phakisa 200 for 2021 and retake that championship away from Graham Nathan and Wouter Roos. This time he did it all on his own. He didn't have his teammate Ryan Cranshaw or his brother, as he's done in the past, to take victories there. But the checkered flag is out, and Mark du Toit wins things out overall and takes the 111 Sports and GT category as well. Brilliant effort there from him, and I'm sure he's looking forward to the rest of this championship in the Car Care Clinic 111 Sports and GT class. That's a great double bit of points there for him though, and certainly going to move him up in the championship overall. Flag comes out for the rest of the field, and an incredible effort from the rest of that field as well, with Philip Meyer coming through for second place overall and the win in the 111 Sports and Saloon car category. He comes through in the People Group Porsche, and that wraps up our coverage from the Car Care Clinic and Dunlop Phakisa 200. Confirmation of those results: Mark du Toit and Philip Meyer at the front end ahead of Voterus, Graham Nathan, and Brett Garland wins out Super Hatch Class A. Dan Hauser in second and du Toit in third. 111 Sports and Saloons Class X goes to De Silva and Holiday, and Shane Forget wins out Class C. In the index of performance, Almera van Eck in the Super Hatch Class C Volkswagen took the index ahead of Ernst and Peter Vermeulen in their Universal Healthcare Polo, ahead of Garland and Berza. Let's catch up now with Mark du Toit after an incredible victory.
Yeah, great race for me this year, and no real issues with the car. Last year we ran out of fuel with like 4 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go. So this year we didn't make that mistake again, obviously. Fortunately, my co-driver is stuck in Singapore, so I drove the race by myself. But I really enjoyed it. Had a fantastic dice in the beginning. There were 4 of us together: Charles and Louis and Vota. It was it was a great race. And then towards the end, I just had to bring it home.
All this extreme festival of motorsport action is proudly brought to you by Car Care Clinic and Dunlop Tires.